All right, all right. Welcome everyone to the Uto Nwanne Family Podcast. So I'm going to introduce myself and the rest of the team will too, but this is going to be a podcast to let you know all about what the spirit of Uto Nwanne is about. We'll give you some different ideas of the topics that we'll be getting into. And to start off with an intro, I am Nemoma Chukwumerija, daughter of Onyenoha and Nena Chukwumerija, who are based out in Southern California. And personally, I'm in New York City myself. I'm a social worker. I'm in the tech wellness space. I am a lover of all things family. And I will pass it over to Nkem to introduce herself too.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Nkem Chukwumerija here. Also, well, sister to Namoma, and also daughter of Onyanaha Chukwumerija and Nana Chukwumerija. And I live in Southern California with the family at the moment. I've been a nomadic person, but that's taking a pause now as life recalibrates itself. And I'm actually the one who came up with the idea for this podcast because I personally have a podcast. And I thought, what a beautiful way to connect with people, just in general, right? Like, not everybody likes to connect via, I don't know what other ways. Honestly, it's just easy to connect with people because it's like a phone call, right? Or it's just like getting together for a chat and you record it and then you share it with everybody else. And we have such a big, robust family that just kind of spreads itself through different parts of this world. And there's so much that we can learn from each other and share with each other that I thought it would be a beautiful way to do that. And also, skills wise, for those of us who are helping to put the podcast together, it's a great way to build some new skills. A little bit about myself. I am a creative entrepreneur. I run a platform called Wellspring Words. It's a wellness writing space and writing studio online. And also, I'm a teaching artist and a healing artist. And these are the ways that I identify myself right now. And I'll pass it over to Toya before we dive into more about what this podcast is and how to get involved. Welcome, Toya.
Hey, my name is Toya Chukwumerija. I'm the son of M.A. Chukwumerija and ND down here in Houston, Texas. A little bit about me. I work as a data analyst here for an oil and gas company here in Houston, which is, really what Houston's about for the most part. Um, Fun fact, I play professional ultimate in my free time. So down here in Houston. So that's
Ultimate
kind of cool.
Frisbee. People need to know what ultimate
Ultimate
means.
Frisbee, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's really cool.
So yeah. So yeah, that's really about me.
Thanks, Toya. And I also realized that I didn't share why I'm part of this podcast as well. So for me, after Kem kind of brought the idea up, I was really moved by the family reunion that we did in Houston in November 2023. So if anyone who's listening to this did not come to that, we're going to have another one at some point. I don't know. Planning is going to happen at some point. But y'all need to come because we really had such a good time connecting with each other. I get to meet a lot of family members who I'd never seen before. And just in the small moments of connection, right? Either going to watch a movie together, sitting at the table, playing card games, watching the parents dance in the living room, or the Thanksgiving meal that we had, the many meals that we had. It was such a beautiful space. So I personally hope that this podcast can help to spark more conversations and more connections with people so we can have more moments with that, because this family's huge. We are
Huge.
all over the US. We're all over the diaspora. And it would be so cool to actually be able to lean on each other in those times, not just our immediate units, right? Of just who we know, our parents and our siblings, but actually rely on our cousins and our aunts and uncles, and in those times of need, but also just for connection too.
Yeah. It's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I'm looking forward to in this, I guess, because my personal interest is all about spiritual healing and trying to understand more about our ancestry, and the gifts that we have and the talents and all the things that we don't necessarily know immediately that aren't publicized through our family. Being someone who's very deeply in the creative space, I haven't seen those things show. And I mentioned this at the family reunion in 2022, but we see doctor, lawyer, engineer, these things publicized, and for me, it gives me the energy of like, yeah, they're the big man on top, and that's great. Be the big man on top. Everybody needs a big man on top. Wonderful. But how about the other people in other areas doing other things that are also excellent, or they have a different kind of excellence that we don't necessarily deem excellent because we don't know that language? And so I'm hopeful that having more conversations with more of the family, we can bring out those parts of us that we're not necessarily so loud and proud to say, hey, here's what I'm doing, or here's what I accomplished, or here's what I tried out, because we fear that our family's not going to accept it. That has been my personal experience, that maybe they're not going to accept it as readily as they would have accepted it if it was like this kind of award, or if I went to that school, or if I had this profession. So I hope that we can start to bring some of those other parts of ourselves out so we can feel more whole as individuals and as a family unit. That's going to make it much easier for us to stay connected as we grow and as we get older, because you and I, Namama, we've been in leadership in this family in a sense since we were children, but we're not children anymore. And one day we're going to be old, and one day we're going to be dead. And then who is going to be here to be talking about their truth and their experience if they don't feel like they have the space to do it? So that's one of the reasons why I feel this space here, this open space for us to connect is really important.
Yeah, you touch upon a lot of points. I'm still a child, though. People who they listen.
You're still in your age.
I need you all to nurture me, yo. I need nurturing too.
No one's saying you shouldn't get nurturing. We're just saying that one small girl, she's not the same anymore. So
no, but I hear you though. We're trying to actually build something that's gonna last for a while, and things are changing. It's not the same. Oh, you need to be doctor, lawyer, engineer,
pharmacist. Let me not forget, because the pharmacist will come and tell us, hey.
Right. Exactly. Things are different. So we want to make sure that everyone actually feels included in this conversation, in this family, to know that there's room for many types of people. And even though, I've heard many times over and over again that educational excellence is our legacy, and it's one of the key pillars and values of being part of Uto Nwanne, being a Chukwumerija. While that's still important, we need to make sure that we're actually creating room for anybody who walks a different path, because all of those paths are valuable. I think it's really good that you brought that up, Kim.
Well said.
Yeah.
Toya, how about you? What we always bring in Toya in. What are you looking forward to experiencing in this podcast journey?
Yeah, I think mostly just like connection, which I know has been brought up a lot, but like what we said is like this family is gigantic, and we're like we're everywhere, and just like getting to know everyone's experiences, how they've grown up, just their experience here in America and in other places, just getting to know those different experiences and getting to connect over that, I think is something I'm really interested. I think a lot of other people would be interested in. And so I think that's like what really drew me to wanting to participate in all this. So yeah, I'm excited for that journey of learning about that with everyone here, and everyone in the family. So I think it's going to be a great time, and I'm ready to go on this journey with everyone. So yeah.
Yay, happy to have you. I have a question for you, Toya, though.
Okay.
Are you, like, just off the top of your head, are you more interested in understanding other youth perspectives, being first generation Nigerian in the US, like us, like other, our generation, or the perspectives of our parents who have come here, or maybe even those of us who have children, those of us in our generation who have children, the second generation, like Ikem's kids and whatnot? What comes up for you with that, at least initially? Because I know it can be all, but like, yeah.
Yeah, I think initially, it's like, yeah, the first generation kids, just how they've grown up. Because like I think I've said this before, is like here in Houston, I feel like we're kind of just isolated from everyone else. So I think just getting to see that experience, just different places within the country, is something I'm really interested in, first and foremost. But I am also like want to see how everyone's experiences in the family, no matter what generation you're from. I think all these stories are going to be interesting to hear, and we can all learn from them. So
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, that was a good question. For myself, I'm also particularly interested in the Nigerian American experience, but the way you framed that question, I also have interest in really what our parents and the elders transition to the US was like. What was that like coming to a new country and having to integrate, and what were some of the protective factors that they had? Did they have community around them? Were they socially isolated themselves? How did they lean on each other? And also, what was difficult? I actually remember in grad school, social work school, doing a paper, and I interviewed Daddy specifically in my paper, and something related to social work and what his experiences were kind of being a Black immigrant in the US. And it was just so eye-opening to hear his different experiences and also how different his views on race are compared to me because
Mm,
of his upbringing and the different opportunities that he was afforded in life, in a way that I just kind of was handed those opportunities being born here in the US, right? A US citizen immediately upon birth. So I think there's so much room to have those type of conversations with our parents, and just even be able to see what else can come up from these conversations in a way that
mm-mm.
is organic. We may have some questions here as we're doing the podcast that we come up with initially, but so open to see where the convos can go and flow and what direction it'll take.
Yeah, that's and something what you said about our dad having a different perspective on opportunities, the race thing, you know, that was back in what, 2014? That was a while. That was like almost 10 years ago. Little baby, I'm still a girl. He's like,
So
dang. But I mentioned that. I mentioned that because living here at home now, I can tell perspectives have shifted. They've shifted for everybody, obviously, but as our parents move into their eldership, what more are they seeing? Especially if they're still in the workforce, right? And they haven't retired. What more are they seeing? Or how have those things shifted? Like that's something that can come up too. And then another thing is food. Like I think we should have a conversation specifically on food because I noticed that even after all this time, they still can't go, a week without something coming from the village entering their mouth. Like to continue to have that connection to the homeland with the food. It needs to be there. So that could be also one of the protective factors, that helps keep you comfortable as you transition to a new land. The food in this country ain't it. I'm just gonna call it what it is. And so maybe, and sometimes you have those other Nigerian people who like they will not eat American food. They will only eat Nigerian food. And so, I mean, it could be interesting to have a conversation or a podcast episode around food, maybe some storytelling around food, the dishes, cooking. There's a lot within that because you ask like one of our parents about one piece of food from the homeland, and there's like a whole history behind it, and they have all their stories of their childhood upbringing, and yeah, so that can be a cool direction to take. If anybody listening to this is interested in that conversation, please contact us. We're going to put our contact information like at the end as well, but here it is now in case you're listening now. You can email at utonwanneyouth00@gmail.com. That's the best way to get in touch. And yeah.
I'm excited because we hadn't even thought about that topic before. So doing this recording, it's a re-recording, y'all. We learned it in this process. So it's actually
Yeah,
kind of fun to do it the second time. But in
it's
our
fun.
we hadn't had that conversation. So that could be a really cool direction to go too. So another thing, y'all, that we kind of want to make sure we touch on with this podcast is being able to also use this as an archive for future generations to come. Kim's eyes went wide. She's like, "Yeah, remember the archive." That's
Right, right.
but we want to be able to use it for future generations to come, where even my own kids, my future kids in how many years can listen back and be like, oh, that's who my mom was, that's who my grandparents were, my uncles, my cousins, etc. And just be able to kind of keep that history. So we plan to have this audio version of it. We're going to have, hopefully, depending on what y'all are listening to or watching, will be on YouTube so you can see each other as well. But just to kind of the peace side, just to keep it connected, keep it here with us.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's super important. I think, yeah, the spark for this came from the last night of was it the gala night? Do we call it gala night? I don't know. The final night of the family reunion back in 2022. And they had this really cool archival storytelling history trivia of old pictures of our relatives, our ancestors. And I thought that was great. I love that stuff. Like, it really touches us on a different level, especially the pictures black and white, they're grainy. Like, it's really giving you old vibes. And still, there are like a zillion pictures that we have that are modern that none of them were there. And it's like we could say, who was this person in this picture, and show a baby picture of one of us or one of the kids. But we didn't do that. We only looked at like the older men in our family, really. I'm gonna call it out because that's something that I'm really passionate about. And I figure that if I'm passionate about it with my big voice, and other people are passionate about it, and then maybe they're not saying anything, because I want there to be, as we said before, space for all different types of people from different backgrounds, different ages, everything, to be showcased and to be seen. So that's just one example of having the picture trivia, which was really fun. But we can do something like that on this podcast, or just having this podcast in general, this archival. Hopefully we'll be able to even have like smaller and younger voices coming on here to talk about their experiences and ask their questions, and develop their own voices and their own confidence in this way. That's one of the goals we have too.
I think it's actually a good time for Toy. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about some conversations that we hope to have and what's coming up for us too.
Yeah, so we brainstormed a couple of ideas. So I know one of the conversations we were hoping to have was over like entrepreneurship and careers in the family, which I know Cam kind of talked about earlier, and just like the different avenues that we can all take in the family, how it doesn't have to just be lawyer, doctor, or pharmacist and stuff like that. So I think that's a pretty exciting conversation to come. I know we just talked about food, so that's a new one.
Add that to the list.
We're just adding that to the list. So it's actually pretty exciting to, learn about. I didn't even think about, conversating on that, but now I'm excited. So that's really cool. I know a big one we wanted to have was just like the woman in the family. Getting to hear their stories, their experiences of, coming in and joining such a large family. And just how through the years they've grown through that, and being able to connect a lot of people through that, I think will be great for all of us. Yeah, and then I think we also had just the overall immigrant experience of our parents, just coming to America, how that's been, how is it, different from Nigeria and stuff like that. And then also like kind of touching on that, like just I guess with the kids, like how the Igbo language has, kind of just disappeared from our generation, I guess, in a way. How we're not really conversating in that way anymore, and what that means like for this first generation of kids in America and second generation, and how we can I don't know, maybe spark more interest in learning the language again, or at least just getting some experience with it.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, the one about the Igbo language, that's actually going to be our next episode coming up. We are talking with a few people in the family of different generations to get their ideas about that. So that's going to be a little panel. Y'all will see that soon. Stay tuned for that for the next episode. So I'm excited about that. I'll be leading that one, and I have a lot to say on that. So get ready. get ready.
She's a resident. Okay, let me try to say it in Igbo person. You know, which I love, which is great because left to me, I'll be like, still, huh? What? And
Kim will be saying it in Spanish, and I'll be in my head.
Who asked you to speak on behalf of me?
Sorry.
Sorry. But I liked how you mentioned that you're going to be leading that one, because something that we should say is that even though we're the three who are kind of initiating this project, we do want for others to come in and host and, you know, just like take that ownership where they feel comfortable, where they feel drawn, and where they feel like passionate about the subject or something. So it doesn't have to be us always hosting and leading, but if you feel like you want to be in this position as well, please come in. This is a whole family project.
Exactly. And it's a way to also get to know the people in the podcast crew more too, because I feel like, Toya, you and I really didn't even know each other before the family reunion or even before doing this podcast more closely, and now we're actually forming a relationship. So that's also really another nice benefit of being part of the podcast crew. So join us. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, you're committing to a long-term thing. Come in for one episode, come for two, just be a listener, whatever you like, but we just want people to be involved.
Exactly.
All right, Kim, you want to tell us one more time how people can get involved, how they can contact us, and what's coming up next?
Yeah, let me catch the ball you're throwing. One more time. This is how you can. This is how you can. Okay, I got it. This is how you can contact us. Our email is utonwanneyouth00@gmail.com. Spelled, it's UTONWANNEYOUTH00@gmail.com. We'll also stick that in the show notes too, so you can see it when you click on this episode. That's the best place to contact to, you know, see if you want to be on an episode, if you have something that you want to say, a comment that you want to share. And depending on how this podcast takes off, we'll see what other ways there are for connection online that makes sense. But yeah, that's the best way to stay in touch.
Nice. Any final thoughts, y'all?
I'm gingered.
I feel good. Excited.
Me too.
Pretty good.
I did want to say one more thing about, we already touched on how our family is so large across the US and other places, but there could be potential for eventually expanding and having our family in Nigeria also be able to join the podcast, or also those who are like in the UK and so many different places, Dubai or anywhere else across the world to join.
Not?
It doesn't have to. So if y'all are listening and you're hearing this or you're seeing these emails, jump in, because it's for everybody.
It's for everybody. Yeah, I was gonna say, why not? Like, let's not limit ourselves, right? We're not able to be in this country, in the US, by limitation. So why should we limit ourselves, you know, on this podcast?
We're all one family.
One love.
All right, y'all. Peace out. Thanks for listening to us, and stay tuned for the next one.
Bye.
Bye.